Hi, welcome to Naptime Nutrition. This is Yafi Lvova, registered dietitian nutritionist with Baby Bloom Nutrition, and special guest today, Kristin Snookal, who's a behavioral therapist and parenting coach. Thanks so much for joining me again, Kristin. We had some technical difficulties earlier, so we are redoing it.
You are welcome. Thanks for having me.
So today we are talking about how to establish boundaries and how to do it in a healthy way. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times these subjects come up. They're often things that I've experienced in my own house, in my own head, or things that come up with clients. And so something that's come up a couple times this week is how we can fall into bad patterns as parents and patterns for our family, and that can impact nutrition. How if your child is insisting on watching TV instead of coming to the table, or gets caught up with their toys, and so you end up with grazing all day, and that can impact nutrition because they never build an appetite, so they don't get hungry to come to the table. And then other issues like bribing. How do you back off of these crutches that made us feel sane but don't contribute to a happy, healthy relationship with food and body? So thank you for joining us, Kristin. So how do we start?
You need to start with number one being patient, is how I'm going to say it. This version of it. Basically, I think everyone falls into those negative, those bad routines where it's, like you said, it's easier to let them kids sit at the table, or even you have that phone at the table, because it's this constant go, go, go in the day, and people forget to sit down and enjoy their meal and breathe. So some people would say, oh, just stop cold turkey, just like any other type of thing you want to stop, just stop cold turkey and fight that battle. And what I have seen in my experience in helping other teachers, parents, regardless, every time they've tried to do something cold turkey, it results in such a bigger power struggle and more of a headache, and that's where they give up. So it's really that idea of scaling back, of coming up with a game plan of how you want to change those negative, or because I don't want to say wrong, but negative behavior trends of having something at the table where you're not enjoying the meal.
So, okay, so that's great. So everything should be a transition because kids need patterns. And when you have established an undesirable pattern, you need to make a transition to make a healthy change toward a more positive pattern. So let's talk about a specific example. If a child is used to having toys and cell phone and some kind of screen at the table, how can you get away from that?
So the main thing you need to do is you need to actually have the conversation with your kids. A lot of parents and adults in general, whether they have kids or not, think of that when they're talking to a child, that they need to talk to a child, and they need to do let me up my voice and my inflection and give them that little talk and be this higher, I don't even know how to describe it, thing. But at the same time, kids are very aware and more with it than I think a lot of people give them credit for. And they really just want to have themselves be respected and heard and feel like they have a say in what's going on in their life. And now I'm not saying give the power to your kids, because that will definitely backfire. But it's talking to them on a level where they feel like they get to have a say in what they're eating and what they're doing. So that's the first step, is talking to them, being like, hey, I've realized we don't really eat together, or you don't eat a lot at the table. You're more focused on your toy or the cell phone, having your screen time. I want to try getting that away from the table and focusing more on our food and us and what you're doing with your day. Even if they're 2 or 3, right? They still are doing things with their day, and you can ask them what they drew, what games they played, things like that. And then you are now getting all these positive interactions and experiences with the food, instead of, here, let me focus on this. Oh yeah, there's something on my plate and I'm gonna eat it.
Right. And that type of behavior leads to mindless eating, which doesn't benefit them long term, because they're not really enjoying their food, and they're not enjoying the social interaction with other people at the table. So if you've been in that pattern, so you're saying not to go cold turkey, not to just say no more toys at the table. You're saying first have a conversation with them on on their level, which is probably a higher level than you may have thought.
Right.
And then to transition away from that. So how might that transition look?
So, and even with the conversation, right, trying to have a conversation with a 2-year-old may not be the best way to go about it, but still saying, like, in that going to that transition, okay, so just for purposes of time scale, say you want to start this on Monday. So maybe on Sunday you talk to them about it, depending on their age, and then say tomorrow, when we are going to have dinner, I want to try doing something different. I want to try, when we get to the table, if I say, John, come to the table for dinner, let them come to the table with their toy or their cell phone, but they can only have it like in their hands doing something with it until the food is on the table, and then have them put it down. Or if you are the parent who, because I know every family is different, some parents like to dish up all the food first and on all the plates, and then bring the full plate to everyone at the table. So you can have your phone or the toy until that plate is in front of you and everyone's sitting down ready to eat. And then say, John, can you please put your phone down? Or now even possibly take away the can you, because now it's a request and a question, and they can say no. And say, okay, now put your phone down. It's time to eat. And let them put it down. You don't have to take it away, because now it's that's that negative. It's almost like, what's the word I'm looking for?
It's like a punishment.
It's a punishment. Thank you. But like, oh, yeah, we're at the table, so now it's a punishment and I can't have my toy. And now they're going to have the negative connotation of not being able to have their toy when they eat. And so that negative connotation goes back to a healthy diet. If they're feeling negative emotions with whatever they're eating, well, then now every time they eat that food, if the behavior is going to be there, it's going to lead to think like an unhealthy diet. And they might even go so far as to having indigestion or having acid reflux, or, the food makes their stomach upset just because it's an emotion that they're feeling because they think it's something negative. So
right.
You don't want to just take away, because for most people, something getting taken away means they did something wrong.
Right.
So it's let them keep it, but it's next to them, and you can pick it back up when we're done eating. Like once everyone's done eating, okay, now you can have your toy back. You can pick it up and play with it again.
Mm-hmm. So then that's the first day, and then you're transitioning. So the second day you would be.
So that's where the individual aspect comes in. For some kids, it may only take 1 or 2 days, because I would say, okay, Monday you do that, and Tuesday you may still have to do the same thing of, okay, you can have the toy until the food is on the table, and then put it down, and then when you leave you can play with it again. And then there's going to be the kid who keeps trying to grab it or do something and trying to say the next day, okay, now you can't, when I say please come to the table and you have to leave the toy, that's not going to work. Some kids, sure, it might, but other kids, it may take a week, it may take 2 weeks, it may take a month. And so it's that gradual. It's almost like if you've ever had to take some sort of medicine where you have to take it for a little bit of a period of time, but you can't just stop taking it because it'll have a negative effect, almost like a withdrawal. Kids are very much addicted to their toys, and everyone's addicted to cell phones, frankly. And so by just going away from it, right, we would go through our little screen time withdrawal. So you want to minimize that by easing back a little bit, like I said, over a few weeks, over a month. And it's the key for that is on the parents' side of that now, with that we tend to have our own time frame in mind of when things should happen. And when it doesn't go to plan in our brain, we get frustrated and we'll give up. Or we try to force it and then make it that cold turkey. And kids' timetables are completely different. Their concept of time is different. So you have to really be willing to sit back, breathe. Okay, well, that didn't go as planned. Okay, well, we'll try again tomorrow. And keep easing back, because you will get there. It may not be as fast as you would like, but eventually your child will stop bringing the toy to the table. You will get to the point where you can say, hey, it's time for dinner. Come to the table, put what you're doing down, or like come put down what you're doing and come to the table. And they'll all put their stuff down. Even, your husband may, if you're the mom having to do that and say, calling the whole family, and you're away from the TV, right? And it'll be seamless. And you've taken away the power struggle of trying to be at the table and be like, okay, put your give me your toys, and it's that power struggle of giving me your toys or the phone, and then halfway through, can I have my toy back yet? Can I have my toy back yet? That's not going to be an enjoyable meal.
Right.
So you really have to scale it back. Either, like I said, every day or every week. Try 1 week one way, the next week's going to be the other way, and it is proportionately like getting to be a larger time without whatever that bribery or item is that they're wanting.
Okay, so getting to the bribery, if you have a situation where the parent is used to saying, eat your broccoli, and then if you eat your broccoli, you can have your ice cream. It's not something that I advocate. With division of responsibility, the child is in charge of whether they're eating and what they're eating from what's on the table. The parent's in charge of what's on the table. So bribery really crosses lines by telling the child, you need to put this in your mouth and chew and swallow, which that's really the child's domain and can end up encouraging an unhealthy relationship with food. If you force something, they're going to hate it. So how can you back off of that if you've gotten yourself into that trap?
I feel like that one is a little bit of trickier one to get out of, because you've already established like a hierarchy to food where ice cream's good, broccoli's bad, whether that's what you do or not. But realistically, like their broccoli. Okay, so in the idea of scaling things back or increasing things, so for like the bribery, it's scaling the bribery back and it's non-existent. So if you're wanting to take away the like, oh, you've given your kid choices and they can eat at dinner, and now you're wanting to take away those choices, you can't take them all away all at once. You need to give them still like 2 choices. Now the main food like group of whatever the meal is, that needs to be there. That is a constant. There's no choice. If you're eating chicken, you're eating chicken, but you can adapt how much of it maybe they have to eat, because you don't know how hungry you are. So maybe it tastes good to them. You don't want to eat something that doesn't necessarily taste all that good. So it's taking away that you have to eat this to get this. And part of that is then, if you're doing this as a gradual thing, like we're saying, then you need to put something on the table that you know that they like.
Right, the safe food. You should always have the safe food on the table.
Yeah, there's always got to be something on the table that your child likes. And if you have 2 or 3 kids and they all like something different, every family, I feel like there's something everyone likes. Or it's if someone likes chicken and someone likes mashed potatoes versus rice, and someone else likes noodles. Just throwing that out.
It's a pretty common one, yeah.
Everyone pretty much likes noodles, but you never know. There might be someone who doesn't. But so, okay, well, I like mashed potatoes. I'm going to grab some mashed potatoes. If you're at the table, you might like the noodles. You can grab the noodles. I grab the mashed potatoes. Everyone has the chicken. And then everyone has at least 2 things on their plate to eat. And that power struggle of you need to eat this to get that is gone, because they're going to want to eat it.
So you're saying to be especially conscious to have safe options on the table, especially when you're backing off of this bribery thing. And
back off bribery and give them no option of something they like. Because that's when you get the kid who sits there and refuses to eat. You know, I'm not eating.
Right. So have an entire meal of safe options, and then maybe transition back to something that is more along the lines of what you would have planned. But for that week of transition, so to speak, you have maybe some interesting looking meals, because you're going to have a lot of safe options, so that you can get rid of that bribery and transition back to having things at the table that you want, which
you may have a meal that's completely full of different starches. That's okay for a day or 2. Starch isn't really going to, nothing inherently hurts you. So it's not like, oh, this is an unhealthier choice versus this one, going back to that whole hierarchy of food. There is no hierarchy if they're all there, and you don't make a deal about like, oh, that's the bad thing to do. Don't eat that one. Eat this.
Right.
Because yes, you are the authoritarian as the parent. You are deciding what their choices on the table to eat are, but at the end of it, they're getting to choose what on the table that they are getting to eat.
Right. I love that. And the truth is that a lot of research has shown that nutrition for kids especially isn't over one meal, isn't over one day. It's over the course of a few days. And so if you're going through this transition, you have to keep the end goal in mind. And the end goal is happy meal times and a positive nutrition experience and a healthy relationship with food and body as they get older. So 1 week of every meal being starch in pursuit of that greater goal is really, it's along the lines of what you want to be doing as a parent. It's looking past the immediate and looking towards the long-term goal, which is that health.
Right. Which, and I know really, right now everyone's really that, oh, be in the moment, be this, what's happening now is what's important. That's not the case.
It's true.
It's, yes, it's, you want to enjoy your food, but you want to also be able to not have that guilt or the negative connotation associated with it. And I think those start back in childhood if parents are like putting that there.
Right.
You're not meaning to, you may be meaning very well, but if you're being bribed to eat something, you're going to start associating that first food group or whatever item as something that is not good, or not good, but not
desirable.
Yeah.
You're going to spend your whole life running away from that particular food, even if you might have liked it at some point. You know, I was thinking about this last week at the beach. My baby is not really into the waves, and the water was kind of cold. And the thing is, I would never consider running into the water with him because it would scare him and it would cause possibly a lifelong fear of water and the beach. And the thing is that we can take that and apply it to food. If you chase your child with broccoli or whatever it is, you're possibly creating a lifelong fear, and bribery fits into that, and rewards fit into that. You really just want to have a neutral approach to food on the table. The parent's in charge of what's on the table. The child is in charge of eating, and you can't cross those borders because they will meet their needs over a few days, over a week, if they are given the right amount of healthy control. And we need, as parents, we need to say yes as often as possible, because parenthood is a lot of saying no. So when we can give them healthy control in appropriate ways, we should do that. And this is one of those instances.
And a lot of parents try to say that their kids don't like any vegetable. And in reality, out of all the families I've worked with, that's never been the case. There's always been some vegetable that the kid actually really does like. And so, I mean, like I was thinking earlier, right? Like I didn't like broccoli, but I liked the peas and carrot mix that my mom had. And so when she wanted me to eat vegetables, well, then that was the vegetable that day. And there was no fight. There was no power struggle. There was no, Mom, I don't want to eat my vegetables, because that was a good vegetable for me. I don't even think I realized that was a vegetable thing, right? It just was yummy. And that may have been because my mom put butter on it, but it was enjoyable for me. Like
butter is delicious. Nothing against butter.
But by doing that, my mom never really had that power struggle with vegetables once she started going about it that way. Instead of having that battle, which for a while I do remember her being like, you need to eat this much, but that never worked, right? And I, like you said, still to this day, there's a few things that I don't like because she tried to force them on me. But then she stopped doing that, and she finagled her way around and made it seem like it was my choice to eat what was on the table. All the connotations went away. And I started liking different foods that before I never really had thought to like before, or even tried before. And that's the case with a lot of kids. And again, a lot of it goes to being subconscious. You're not necessarily meaning to do it, and the kid isn't even realizing they're making those connections. But by including your kids in the decision process, at least somewhat, they now have ownership over their meal and what they're putting in their body. And a lot of the issues that some people tend to have later on in life aren't going to be there, because that association or that hierarchy has never been there for them. Right. Or was rid of at an early age.
But in order for all of this to work, there has to be some degree of mindfulness, which means not grazing all day. It means having family meals as often as possible. It means not having distractions at the table. And if you've fallen into one of those traps for your own sanity, and we all understand that, there are ways out of it. And so what Kristin's saying is transition. Don't make overnight changes. Have open age-appropriate discussions with your kids about the changes and go about them in a slow way to make it an easy transition.
Definitely.
Yeah? Okay.
Yes, perfect.
That's the big picture. Okay, so if you have any questions or comments, please use the comments section. And Kristin's going out of town, but maybe I can bribe her to look through the comment section and address anything.
I'll be at the airport for a while tomorrow morning, so.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining me. And
having me.
Someone needs attention. So thank you so much for joining me, Kristin. And I think this is really valuable. And if anyone has any questions or comments, again, comment section, and I will be here next week at my usual time, 1 p.m. Arizona, which is currently 4 p.m. East Coast and 1 p.m. West Coast. And I'm not sure what time in Hungary, but maybe Kristin will let me know.
It's 9 hours ahead of California. So.
All right.
Yeah, I don't know. Too much math right now.
10 p.m. in Budapest. So thank you so much again. And I hope to get some comments. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.